we because my sister showed up today, which is really nice that she was able to show up. um, I've decided that I'm going to postpone today's lesson till next week. And what we're going to do is share with you some of the things that the Lord did in out on the mission field when we were there, both as missionary kids and as missionaries. Um, Angela and her husband were missionaries in Palau, uh, also, and then Guam, and then uh, me.
Philippines and Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Rose went out to Guam, and we were out there in the islands for about 26 years. But and I had mentioned before that I was trying to get my mother before she went to be with the Lord to write another book, because she had so many experiences that were just totally amazing. And I've tried to relate some of those, and I've probably told you guys a few of them, but I kind of wanted to go into some of that today and just let you see what the Lord has been doing. Because when I started thinking back on it all, it's just totally awesome. Some of the stuff that the Lord did. Um, One thing I wanted to mention, and I've told you this story before, but for the benefit of those who have not heard it and may want to listen to the recording or whatever, I'm going to tell it in brief again. Um, when I can't remember my age, but when uh, I think it was maybe when I was a freshman in high school, um, we were at the girls' school that my parents taught at. It was a mission school in Palau, and we were having a meeting that night. Um, and I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember film strips, but we were watching a film strip and teaching on Elisha and his servant. You remember when uh, his servant was all afraid because the armies were surrounding, and he Elisha asked the Lord to open his servant's eyes so he could see the armies of the Lord, and it was a great encouragement to him. Um, Amazingly enough, that very night, um, this man who was angry at my father because he had fired him from working at the school because he was getting drunk all the time and beating his kids and all that. He made a lot of threats for a number of years, but he finally got really drunk one night and walked all the way from his village, two villages over, and walked through another village and told everybody that he was going to kill us and burn the school down. Now, his daughters were attending the school at the time. Well, he was walking in a huff toward the school, and he stopped. Now, the magistrate, or it's like the mayor of our village, was walking through our property toward him, and he came up on him, and he saw him standing there, and he looked like he was really afraid, and he said, what's going on? And this man said, "Can't you see?" He says, what are you talking about? He said, "Turn around and look." So the magistrate turned around, and all he could see was open ocean covering where the school would have been. And so they both turned around and ran back to the village and told everybody what was going on. They both saw it, and the magistrate was not drunk. It's amazing. The Lord protected us that night. He
Yeah.
knew what was in this guy's heart. And you know, it's just a miracle what the Lord did.
Yeah, and the magistrate came the next morning to our what was called misang. It was like a morning prayers and um, devotional time, like around 6 o'clock. And he got up and I mean, he hadn't been going to church or anything like that. He got up and he testified to that. And he said something like, God must be protecting you people because
Right.
I don't know. I don't understand what happened, but this school was gone. It was gone. It was just open ocean. And he was just like, floored. And then our dad got up and said, "Hey, you remember what we were teaching on last night?
Exactly.
The angelic armies surrounding, Elisha, and that he opened Gehazi's eyes and
Yep.
he drew a connection between those things,
Yep.
and everybody saw it. Like everybody saw the direct connection with that.
Yep. That's for sure. Uh Ange, I want you to tell the story about when you uh went to school in the Philippines. I think it was your second year as a freshman,
Yeah.
when you came to Faith Academy in the Philippines. Tell them what the Lord did for you.
Okay. Yeah, it was my first time to travel by myself because Sandy had just graduated from high school, so he was no longer traveling with me to go to boarding school. So I was by myself traveling from Palau to Manila. And I got to the airport and nobody was there to meet me. And the school was pretty far away from the airport, at least, an hour or more drive. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have phone numbers I could call and no way to do that anyway. I didn't have hardly any money. I honestly didn't know what to do. So I just sat down on this stool. I think it was at like a kind of a bar type area in the airport. And I was just sitting there and I didn't know what to do. And this man came up and sat next to me. He looked kind of like a Filipino, but I don't really remember exactly what he looked like. And he said, "You look like you're lost." And I said, "Well, nobody met me and I don't really know what to do. I just don't know what to do." And he said, "Okay, follow me." And I just went with him. It seemed okay to do that. I felt free to do that. So I just walked behind him. We went outside out to um the area where people drop off and stuff. And he hailed a taxi and he told the taxi driver to come out and come in front of me. And he said, "I want you to remember his face and his name." And he said, "I'm going to write his name and his license number on your suitcases with chalk." And they put them in the trunk. And he said, "I want you to remember this." And he told the taxi driver, and the taxi driver the whole time had this look of kind of shock on his face, like he was afraid of the guy, which was weird for me. Like the guy was being so nice. And he said, "You take her directly to Cainta Rizal, where she needs to go to school, and you don't go take a long cut or anything. You go directly there and drop her off." And he handed him money to pay for my fare. And then, so I was like kind of getting adjusted, and I turned around and he was gone. The man was gone. And I sat down in that taxi and I went, "Who was that? And why did he do that for me? I don't understand." And I realized later that he had to be an angel. I honestly believe that because there was no reason some Filipino guy would help a teenage American girl and, pay for her fare to, there was like no logical reason for it other than that.
Yeah, such an amazing thing. Um, I had the privilege of interviewing a couple of the early missionaries to Palau. They're German missionaries, Protestant missionaries, actually with the same mission that I was with. And they were there when the Second World War broke out. And believe it or not, even though the Japanese and Germans were in the Axis, they didn't like each other very well. And so they were the Germans were the Japanese were coming in there and basically killing anybody. Um, and so they moved from the government center up to the north, a village up north, and they were living in this house up there. And there was a knock at the door, and this Japanese guy came and he said, "You know what? You guys need to leave here immediately, go out to the jungle and hide because they're coming here to kill you." And in fact, that's exactly what they had planned. They planned to exterminate the entire population of that island, which wasn't very large at the time. Um, so they quickly got their stuff together and left and went into the jungle and ended up meeting a lot of other Palauans who were also fleeing the Japanese. And it was very fortuitous for everybody concerned because they um, they really helped people with some survival skills and stuff. And I talked to his wife, and she said, when I went in there, uh, I was wearing a skirt, and my skirt was like the hem of the skirt was just below my knees. And by the time we got out of the jungle, my skirt was down around my ankles. So she had lost a huge amount of weight, during that time. But the Lord saved them, and they were very adamant that that must have been an angel that came to to save them.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny because I had totally forgotten that Angela went through a very similar experience than I did when I first went to the Philippines, except for I didn't have an angel come to get me. uh, I got thrown in jail as a 12-year-old boy, and the customs official came up to me and he said, "There's a fee. Do you have any money?" And of course, I'm just this kid. So I didn't know any better. And my parents had given me, like, I think it was like a $20 bill. And I showed that to him. He says, "Oh, that's exactly what the fee is." Took it and put it in his pocket. Finally, the missionary showed up a couple hours later because in Manila, traffic is so bad there, it can take anywhere from an hour to 4 hours to get from the school to the airport. So they had gotten hung up in traffic, and he had no way of contacting me. Um, so finally, I got to the school, but I had to spend the first 2 weeks of the school traveling down to Manila with one of the dorm parents, and I had to go to court every single day for 2 weeks. And this was all because they said that the permission that I got from the Philippine consulate in Guam wasn't uh, legitimate, and it was legitimate. So anyway, but finally that all worked out, and I was just so thankful to the Lord that it was a scary thing for a little kid. Um, Angela, can you tell them about the time that we went up to um, uh, 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 what am I saying? We went up to witness in the village up in not Angour, but uh, up there, and
Hallelujah.
we were in Peleliu, and at the time uh, we used mosquito coils. I don't know if some of you guys, probably in Australia, might have used those things before, but anyway, tell them what happened, Ange.
Yeah, we were all sleeping on a bunch of girls from girls high school, Micronesian girls they were all sleeping on the floor of this house together on kind of like pallets, like tatami mats with, little thin little kind of mattress on it. And they put a mosquito coil right next to my mattress because I was a mosquito magnet, and they knew that about me, that I would get bit really bad, and the mosquitoes were really bad. So during the night, apparently I had kind of tossed my blanket off, and got lit on fire. And then I pulled it back over me, and I kept dreaming that it was like just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and I kept scrunching up, and I was ended up like scrunched up in this little ball in the corner of my mattress. And finally I woke up my dad, and I said, "It's really hot." And he looked up, and my mattress was just on fire. It was smoldering, my whole mattress, and I was in one little corner that wasn't burned. So he pushed me off the mattress. He rolled up the tatami thing with the mattress inside it and threw it out the window. And it burst into these huge flames. And everybody was like, it woke everybody up. And I literally did not have even a singed hair on my body. It burned. I had been sleeping on a couple of my dresses rolled up as a pillow, and my dresses burned. I mean, everything burned, but I was completely fine. Um, it was just miraculous the way the Lord saved.
Yeah, it's so amazing what the Lord does for us sometimes. I also remember an incident where it was Thanksgiving, and we were at the school, and sometimes we didn't have a lot of finances because they couldn't charge very much for the kids to come to school. And so sometimes we would run really low on food. In fact, I often would go out and go fishing, spear fishing, and bring back fish for the girls to eat. But on Thanksgiving, we were not going to be able to have a meal, because there wasn't enough food. So we were out at the beach, sitting in the beach, and all of a sudden we see this U-boat pulling up to the beach. And it was the military, because during that time, um, it was Palau was under the trust territory of the United States, and so there were a bunch of military guys, and they all started offloading all these boxes, and it was a whole bunch of frozen turkeys. So the Lord provided, our whole Thanksgiving meal. Another amazing thing. Um, my my mom often related a story about how they were on their way to, I think it was Peleliu also, and in our diesel boat, and it was getting to be pretty late in the evening, and the boat got stuck on a coral reef. And so basically my mom and some girls jumped off the boat and started to push the boat off of the coral reef, and they were actually able to get it pushed off with the help of the guy who was the captain. But then the captain just sped off, and it was like dark, and couldn't see them because they didn't have any flashlights or anything. So they're standing there on this coral reef. And fortunately, one of the older deacons on the boat told the guy, "You go look for that." He was going to just keep going, and he said, "No, you need to go back and look for them." So it took quite a while, but finally he found them, and they were able to get them back in the boat. And later on, they found out that that area there is a very dangerous area. There are lots of sharks and things like that in that on that channel that they were right next to. So again, the Lord saved them. And this happened to me a lot when I was fishing because I would fish outside the reef often. And I I I've told this story as part of a message actually a couple different times, but I was outside the reef for this one time with a couple of boys on a raft, and this storm came up really fast because sometimes that happens out there. And the the two boys just left me out there outside the reef, and I thought that they were going to die because I saw the raft upend going through the surf. The surf was like probably about 10 feet by that point. And so I was outside the reef and trying to figure out how am I going to get inside the reef, and decided that if I swam right on the edge of the channel, because I couldn't swim in the middle of the channel, the tide was coming out, and I didn't think I could make it over the reef because I would have gotten hurt. So I started swimming, and I had to swim for probably at least 45 minutes, flat out, because I would swim as hard as I could, and then a wave would come and push me in a few feet, and then I'd swim as hard as I could to stay in the same place. And so finally, I saw the rocks, and I was able to grab onto the rocks and pull myself in to safety. Um, and when I got back to the village, everybody was worried about me because the boys had made it back safely, fortunately. But the Lord, taught me some lessons through that. And I know that He saved me. I'm sure I wouldn't have made it at my age at all. Wouldn't have made it at all in my own strength. Um, Ange, is anything else that you want to share?
Not to really think of anything off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Well, we were many times when we were in the school, these girls would come from a couple different island groups, especially from the Marshalls and from Chuk. And a lot of times they were having demonic problems, even possession. And frankly, when I was a young person, I was pretty scared of that, you know, knowing that I wasn't totally right with the Lord at that point. And but mom would go in there and she would pray with them or sing songs or whatever the Lord led her to do. And so many demons came out, you know. I also had a friend next door, and he actually went to Vietnam. And when he came back from Vietnam, he came over and talked to my mom because he says, I have these little green men and they're tormenting me and trying to, uh, do something to me. And he was really afraid, even though he wasn't a Christian. Um, we also, when I went out there one summer with my kids and Rose, and we were staying at the school when nobody was there, basically. And one night she woke up and she was just scared to death, and she said, "I don't want to be here anymore. We need to leave immediately." And so I told her, there's this demon in this village that's been held here, I believe, by this old man down the road, and probably worshiping it. I don't know. But we used to have problems with that demon. He'd come and really try to scare you, he would cause great fear. And so we went out to the beach, and I just said, we just need to pray and ask the Lord to remove this thing from us. And so we did that, and then everything was fine. But, when you're in a culture that's been worshiping demons for hundreds and maybe even thousands of years, you are going to have all those kinds of problems. They just continue on. So, um, we had that that stuff. And before we even went out to the mission field, when my parents, it's an amazing story about how the Lord led them to go to Micronesia, this place they'd never even didn't know anything about, but the Lord led them to go, and they didn't even know who to contact. There were only two missions that they knew about. And then they found out that there was a branch of the mission in New Jersey, but they didn't have the address. So they knew it was called Schooley's Mountain. So they wrote a letter to Liebenzell Mission, Schooley's Mountain, and it got through. And that's how they came to be with the mission. But before they left, we were in our house, and my dad was sitting in a chair, and he wasn't moving, and I knew something was wrong. And so I got a hold of mom, and uh, he was having a heart attack. So they went off to the hospital, and she wanted to stay in with him because they had to take him to Indianapolis. This was when we were living in Indiana. And so after some time, we stayed with some other people. And then we had a church prayer meeting where we all got together and we prayed for his healing. And I remember that was my first like prayer meeting, like that kind of a prayer meeting that I went to. And I just believed that the Lord was going to do something. And we were all praying for that. And sure enough, within a matter of days, he was well enough to go ahead and make plans to travel out to Micronesia. And at that time, they didn't have stents, they didn't have open heart, they didn't have bypass surgery or any of that. So he had to take nitroglycerin for the rest of his life. But he he was survived, and he did many great things until the Lord took him in a boating accident. Uh, by the way, his body was never found. The boat was found, but he was never found. And but a number of people at his memorial service got saved. A lot of people got saved, apparently. I wasn't there. Angela was there, but I was in school in the Philippines.
Yeah. And it was really amazing because um, my mom had several messages from the Lord. It was always out of scripture, but the first one was before they left the US, and the Lord told her, she was praying about my dad, what should we do? Because I mean, he's like only in his 30s, but he's having heart attacks. And the Lord told her that he was not going to be returning home after somehow I don't even remember the verses, but he was not going to be returning home from the mission field, which meant he had at top 7 years, because our terms were 7 years back then. So when time got closer and closer, like maybe 4 or 5 years into that, my mom started to get kind of concerned and saying, how will I know? How will I know that this is the time that you're going to take him? And the Lord told her through verses in Ezekiel that he was going to die in the midst of the seas. And so she just went, okay, um, now I know. Now I know how you're going to do it, Lord. So, and when my dad did die in a boating, in a storm, a lot of the Palauans were coming up to us and going, oh, I'm sure he's at this island or that island. I'm sure he stopped here or there. You need to go look for him, on these far flung islands. And my mom just said, nope, this is it. The Lord took him. And she just knew in her heart. And we were able to just rest in that and not be like searching everywhere for his body or trying to find him. Anyway, the Lord like really helped all of us through that that difficult period because
Yeah.
it was hard. You know, he was only 40 and Sandy was 15. I was 12.
Yep.
So it was just a, you know,
I was
traumatic.
very young and I was at school in the Philippines, and I we my mother had decided to write a letter to me to tell me what happened, rather than try to send a telegram. But unfortunately, one of the other ladies in the mission did send me a telegram, and me and the dorm parent, we sat down and tried to figure out what she was saying, and we couldn't figure it out.
It was very cryptic.
It was
Yeah.
very cryptic, and that's how she talked anyway. Um, so I was waiting for like a week or something for because she was going to come through the Philippines to find out what was going on. And so then I really remember, I was taking my midterms, and they called me down to the office, and sure enough, they told me that he had disappeared. Um, and it was just devastating, and especially since I was not able to actually go back to Palau and that year and uh, you know uh, talk to people and whatever. But I was so glad to hear later that during the memorial service that a bunch of people got saved. He was a really great preacher and evangelist, and a lot of people got saved during his time there. We also uh, went to some villages that didn't have a church, didn't even have any Christians, and the Lord opened up the that village that we went to, and to the gospel, and people got saved. So,
One interesting thing that happened at the memorial service for my dad, our dad, my mom and I were walking out of the building, and the man, the one who saw the school covered, the one that was going to try to kill my dad, he was going to try to kill all the students at the school and stuff. He came walking up to us, and he was drunk again, and he was speaking English, which was really strange because he didn't usually do that. We both spoke Palauan, so it was odd. And he said, I just want you to know, we just walked out of the memorial service. I just want you to know that I'm really glad that Pastor Simpson is dead because I tried to kill him 7 times and I was never successful to kill him. So I just want you to know that I'm glad he's dead because now I don't have to go to prison for it.
yeah.
And I just looked at my mom like, what in the world kind of thing is that to
What
say to
gall,
somebody? But as they're leaving the memorial service,
unreal.
it was just incredible. He had tried so hard to kill him, and God never allowed him to have that success. And he was
Yeah.
feeling it.
Well, unfortunately, that was during that time. That was it wasn't just him. There were others as well. One guy tried to chop one of the missionaries' door down uh, with an adze that he used to carry on his shoulder, and he was a hunchback. That guy was scary.
He was
And we
scary.
also had we also had other people that would
Yeah.
come roaring down the road trying to kill us. They get all drunk, but that's kind of how we grew up. But the Lord, I am absolutely positive how many times He saved us. He saved our lives.
Yeah.
Um, he also did some amazing things. Um, when I was on a choir tour from the high school after I had graduated, we took a tour of the West Coast, uh, California, Oregon, Washington, and we. I remember we were picking somebody up at the San Francisco airport, and so we were parked at the curb waiting for them to come out, and I was praying with a good friend of mine, and I just had my hands laid on him, and I was praying for him that the Lord, that he'd be able to witness to people. And so he got up and he went outside the bus and he started witnessing at the airport. And literally, four people made a profession of faith when he
Hmm.
got out there. I was just so shocked, and it just showed me that the Lord can, can do miraculous things that we don't even imagine, as long as we're willing to obey him and do what he's asked us to do.
Yeah.
Um, there are probably many, many more things I could relate to you. There are many more things, but um, for now, that's probably, unless you have anything else, Ange, um, you know, that's just, when I was talking with her yesterday, I was just recounting how many times the Lord saved us and protected us. And um you know I later on, when I went out to be a missionary and I was living in Guam, I was doing, whenever I could, I would travel down to the Micronesian islands to do concerts. And I was doing a concert on the island called Yap, and I actually took a video, uh, a video, with a projector with me, and I really, kind of had a high tech thing going, and played some of the backgrounds to the songs were on video. One of them was on the crucifixion, and I gave a gospel message and everything, and a number of people came forward to give their lives to the Lord. But I didn't realize until afterwards that one of the missionaries from Chuk came up to me and he said, "You know what? You see that guy over there? He came forward and gave his life to the Lord, and he is the town drunk." Wow.
Mhm.
I couldn't believe that. It was so cool, And so, the Lord often does amazing things if we just trust in him. Oh, well, let me tell you one more amazing thing. Um, I was doing concerts, and I this time I was going to Palau to do a concert down there. And uh, when I got to Palau, I got sick, and I got really bad. I couldn't speak at all. I was just whispering. And it came to the day, a couple days later, when I was supposed to do the concert, and I couldn't. I had total laryngitis. But the Lord impressed on me that I just needed to trust in him and tell everybody that I had laryngitis and that I was just going to trust him and go ahead and sing the concert. So I got up and I did that, and I'm whispering to the audience. And I want to tell you this right now. I had perfect voice from the time I started till the end of the concert. And after the concert, I couldn't speak again. It was totally phenomenal. Now, if you know me, unfortunately, at one point in my life, the songs that I was writing for myself were like way too high.
Yeah, it was very high, higher than my voice. When I tried to harmonize with him, he'd sing the higher parts.
It was insane. And but I knew that meant a lot to a lot of people because they could see the Lord doing something miraculous right in front of them. And I think sometimes we just have to trust in the Lord and be bold that way. And because sometimes he can use us, even in our weakness, he can use us.